For 30 long years, a serial killer absolutely terrorized Wichita, Kansas. I mean, this guy murdered 10 people. He sent these taunting, arrogant letters to the police and the media, and then poof, he just vanished. But the most terrifying part of this whole story, it isn't just what he did, but who he was. He was a family man, a church leader, a monster hiding in plain sight, who was ultimately brought down by his own incredible ego. So let's get into the unbelievable case of the BTK Killer.
Okay, so picture this. It's 2004. The BTK case is basically a ghost story, a cold case that's been gathering dust for more than a decade. Then, all of a sudden, a local TV station gets a package. Inside, a chapter from a book the killer says he's writing, and it's titled with this exact, chilling phrase. After all those years of silence, the monster was back, and he wanted everyone to know he was still out there.
You can just imagine the shockwave this sent through the community. I mean, law enforcement, residents, everyone. A case they all thought was permanently closed was suddenly, shockingly, wide open again. And it was all because the killer himself decided it was time to come out of retirement.
What's just wild is that huge gap in time. He was active from his first murders in '74 until his last known victim in '91, and then nothing. 13 years of absolute silence. So why come back? Well, in his own words, he was bored. He was actually angry that the 30th anniversary of his first crime was coming up, and he felt like his story, his legacy, was being forgotten. Can you believe that?
So he starts up this twisted cat-and-mouse game all over again, mailing packages to the media and the police. And this one was just unbelievably brazen. It didn't just have his weird ramblings, it had a photocopy of Vicki Wegerle's driver's license, an item he stole after he murdered her way back in 1986. This was undeniable proof. BTK was real, and he was back in the game.
To really understand the kind of fear he brought back in 2004, we have to rewind. Let's go back to where it all began, to his original reign of terror, and find out how he got that infamous name in the first place.
Now this is so important. He named himself. He literally sent letters to the media suggesting different names, but ultimately signed one BTK. This wasn't a nickname the press gave him. No, it was a brand he created for himself, and that just tells you everything you need to know about his massive ego and his desperate need to control every part of the story.
And his methods were just so meticulous and sadistic. These weren't random attacks, not at all. He called his victims projects, and he would stalk them for weeks, sometimes months. He'd break into their homes, cut the phone lines, and bring his hit kit of tools with him. The ritual was just as important as the act itself. And he always took trophies, like driver's licenses, so he could relive the horror over and over.
All right, so now we get to the part of this story that is just the most unsettling, the hardest to wrap your head around. While the entire city of Wichita was living in fear of this phantom killer, the man responsible was living right there among them. You know, raising a family, leading a Cub Scout troop. Just unbelievable.
I mean, look at this contrast. It's just jarring. On one side, you've got Dennis Rader, the respected community guy, the city compliance officer who'd write you a ticket for having an overgrown lawn, a husband, a father. Then on the other side, the hidden reality, a vicious predator who kept souvenirs from the people he murdered. This ability to flawlessly wall off his public life from his monstrous secret life. It's a hallmark of severe psychopathy. It is a chilling, extreme level of compartmentalization.
And get this detail is just staggering. In January of 2005, right at the absolute peak of his new taunting campaign against the police, while he was actively mailing them clues and playing games, his community, his neighbors, elected him president of their church council. He wasn't just hiding in plain sight, he was thriving.
But that same arrogance, that deep-seated belief that he was smarter than everyone else in the room, that was the very thing that was going to bring him down. The cat-and-mouse game he loved so much was about to end, and he was the one who was about to get caught in the trap.
This right here. This is the fatal mistake. After years and years of sending paper letters, Rader wanted to upgrade his technology. He actually had the nerve to ask the police for tech support in one of his letters, and he demanded they be honest with him. He was so arrogant he thought he could outsmart them no matter what they said.
And the police played his game perfectly. They took out a classified ad in the local paper that said, "Rex, it will be okay," basically giving him the green light that the disk was safe, and Rader totally bought it. He sent a purple floppy disk to a news station, and of course forensic investigators immediately found a deleted Word document on it. And the metadata in that file was like a digital fingerprint.
It pointed right to the last user, a man named Dennis at Christ Lutheran Church.
So, the floppy disk gave them his name, but they needed that final, undeniable piece of proof. So, through a warrant, the police got a hold of DNA from a routine pap smear Rader's daughter had taken years earlier. And because kids get their DNA from their parents, they could compare her DNA to evidence found at that first crime scene from 1974. And it was a familial match. It was over. They had him.
So with the digital trail from the floppy disk and the slam dunk DNA evidence, that 30-year reign of terror came to a very abrupt end on a quiet suburban street in February 2005. The mask was finally about to come off.
When the police pulled him over near his house, they asked him, "Mr. Rader, do you know why you're going downtown?" His response was just bone-chillingly calm. He just said, "Oh, I have suspicions why. The game was over." And he knew it.
In court, Rader didn't just confess. No, he gave a performance. He delivered this rambling, 30-minute monologue describing every single one of his 10 murders in cold, graphic detail. He talked about them like he was recounting projects he'd worked on at his job, showing absolutely zero emotion, zero remorse. It was horrifying for the victims' families, who had to sit there and listen to it.
Amidst all the details of this monster and his capture, it is so important we remember the people whose lives he stole. Joseph Otero, his wife Julie, and their children Joseph Jr. and Josephine. Catherine Bright, Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, Maureen Hedge, Vicki Wegert, and Dolores Davis. So what was actually going on inside his head? Well, the psychologists who evaluated him basically came up with a textbook recipe for a monster. That grandiose sense of self, that pathological need for attention, that's what fueled all those taunting letters. And that complete lack of empathy, a core trait of antisocial personality disorder, is what allowed him to see people not as human beings, but as objects for his own gratification, as projects. And that really brings us to the question that just sticks with you long after the case is closed. Dennis Rader wasn't some shadowy figure lurking in dark alleys. He was a husband, a father, a church president. He was a neighbor. It just forces you to ask, how does this happen? And what kind of darkness can be hiding behind the most ordinary, everyday faces?